All right, welcome to another episode of Wally Hill's Garage. In this episode, we're going to go replace all the hoses in the vehicle with these silicone hoses. Silicone has a very high heat resistance, and also all of the connectors are billet aluminum, right? The ones in there are made of a polymer and some kind of organic filler like corn husks, and therefore the material after a few years gets hot and cold from the cycles and starts to break down, and then you lose all your coolant. Obviously, if you can hear this, aluminum will not do that, so we're replacing it with these. We're replacing the top hose and the bottom hose, but we're also going to replace the heater hose. This is not silicone, but it's time to replace it because I think there's a little bit of a leak coming from this. And then the oil cooler takeoff hose, which is this one right here, has this piece here. You can see it. Let me come up close. This piece here. This piece is made of plastic, and typically it rots after so many years, and it collapses here and you lose all your coolant. Mine's been replaced with a piece of machined billet aluminum. Most people replace this with that. I just needed the rubber hose, but it comes with it, so I'm going to remove this piece and then replace the hose onto the car. And so we'll have that changed out as well. Okay. So I had a problem with the lower radiator hose leaking when we installed it. We bought these hoses from a company called VTT. We bought it through FCP Euro. And interesting enough, I called them, VTT, and talked to their engineer, Chris, and he gave me some advice on what could be wrong. He said it could be the O-ring. And then when I tried to, and then he said, send an email to them, which I did. And they wanted, I think, the purchase date of the hose, which I bought from FCP Euro, and it was roughly 8 months ago. I did it because my day job is I'm an engineering manager for a software company, which is why I have such a great garage. They said it was too long, and they wouldn't send me like $1 worth of an O-ring. I think it's maybe 30 cents. I ordered some from eBay. They said it was proprietary and custom. So I measured it. That's actually 45 mm outer diameter and 38 mm inner diameter. So I ordered some from eBay. But anyway, at the same time, because that was a dead end, we went back to FCP Euro. These guys are awesome. And what FCP Euro has is this lifetime warranty. So if the part is incorrect or it doesn't work, you can order a new part and send it back to them. It's the cost of the shipping, and sometimes it's kind of expensive, so that's why it doesn't always quite work out. But in this case, I did that. I ordered a second set of those hoses, and it came from the actual manufacturer, which is really interesting. So here's the hoses that came, and here's the lower hose, right? But look at interesting. So at the same time, from FCP Euro, just to hedge my bets, it's only $50, right? It's like I said, I'm doing this as a project car. It doesn't really matter because again, my day job isn't mechanics. But the interesting thing is this is the normal hose, which I might just use now while I get FCP to help correct this. But do you see the cuts here? These cuts are horizontal on this part, right? These cuts are up and down on this hose, this brand new hose. But here's what it should be from the OEM hose. See, it's sideways, it's cut across, it's horizontal. So this doesn't fit. And then the back side, here, there's a cut here and a cut here to fit into the connector. It's up and down, it's vertical. On this one, do you see it's horizontal? They flipped these around. Their quality control made a mistake here. So I have to send this back, unfortunately, to FCP Euro and see what they'll do with it. But in the meantime, my car is, again, not running. So I spent an extra $50 from FCP Euro and bought a normal OEM hose. I'm gonna put this in instead and wait for those to show up. So at least the car can run. But yeah, just be careful with some of the stuff you purchase. It's a lot of work. I had to take out, you'll see it on the YouTube channel, that I had to take out like the fan in order to get to these hoses. It's really tight in there. So there's a lot of stuff you have to remove and get underneath the car. So I wouldn't recommend this to anyone unless the car is like on the quick jack and you can get underneath it and the belly pan is out. You have to get underneath it and from the top in order to get to this hose without damaging anything. So yeah, you might want to hedge your bets and buy an extra one if you go this route. So anyway, that's what we have now, and we'll continue on and get this thing rolled back up. All right, so today we're going to change out 4 of the hoses. Basically this hose, which has this basically plastic shell that's full of like, I don't know, straw husks or something. These usually break down. So I'm gonna replace it with a billet aluminum silicone hose, which is impervious to heat. Yeah, so we'll replace this one here. We're also gonna replace the one down here that you see that goes along in that way into the heater core. So that hose, this hose here, which goes to the oil cooler, this hose here, and also the hose you see right here, that comes from that part. This is the part that was made of, again, plastic and corn husks. So I recommend you replace it with a solid aluminum piece, because that breaks down and then this crushes and you lose all your coolant. So I replaced this piece here, but I didn't replace the hose. So I'm gonna replace the hose. The hose goes all the way down into the water pump, which is down here. And we removed the belly pan, if you can see. And so you can see the components. And so we're gonna go through and replace that today. We did take apart the manifold, and we'll take the manifold off here because we're gonna do walnut shell blasting for the intake ports. So we pulled the drain plug, which is this little blue thing, from, you can see that's the bottom of the radiator. We had to remove the intercooler over there, and then to drain it, unscrew this, make it much better. It should be roughly about 2 gallons of liquid. So we have to drain it in order to replace those hoses. So we undid the overflow so that it drains out. Underneath here, you can see is the bottom of the radiator. And in order to get to the radiator, we had to remove the intercooler, which gets in the way on the turbo cars. And that little blue plug is what's plugging there the radiator. We had to remove that. So overall, once the fluid is drained, we can then replace those hoses that we talked about, which is this one down here, this one right here, the heater hose that comes off the bottom here and goes into the heater core. Yeah, and then this hose right here. So yeah, let's go wait till all the liquid to drain. But there you go. All right, and a little trick. Use an air gun. Put it right here into the overflow. Put our hand here. And that will allow us to blow out all the water inside the coolant tanks, giving a much cleaner coolant change. So we have to remove this one ear clamp because we have to replace this hose with the billet aluminum one, and we need to get this hose and reattach it. So that's a 1 ear clamp, use once. Most people would just use a pipe clamp, but however, I actually have the kit. I have the Oetiker stepless ear clamp kit. So you put these stainless steel collars on there and you crimp it with this thing here. So we have a selection out here. We think we took this clamp right here. That's the thing for squeezing it, and it's from Oetiker, and I believe this tool is actually from Canipix. All right. Just like that, you know. So far we had to remove the fan, obviously the intercooler. We had to take the fan out because of trying to get that pipe out. It was really difficult with the fan in the way, so let's get into some more room. And so we'll take it out and then we'll try to remove this pipe here. Yeah, we had to remove that, try to remove this pipe. It was in the way, so we had to remove the entire fan shroud here. Fan shroud is attached by that transmission cooler down there. So with that removed, we got a lot of room. Gotta take out this pipe next. But yeah, the transmission cooler, which is down there, is attached to the bottom of the fan shroud. So you have to get down there and remove that screw. Others won't come out. And there's a screw like right here, right in that hole right there. That you have to remove. It's a T25. But yeah, so there's the fan. We replaced the hose, as you can see here. That's open there. But what you can't see is right, I think down right here. The hose used to have a 1 ear clamp, which was biting into this return pipe here, so I cut it off, and we're going to replace it with one of these. So we'll do that right now. And then wiring
that heater cable. It was really difficult getting it out of there. You have to pop the quick connect and pull it out. But I think I cracked one of these connectors. I think it's that one right there, the hold down. And so I had those reordered and replaced. Then I noticed that this other pipe should be replaced as well. So I ordered that one. And we'll get to replace it once it gets here. But yeah, the problem was with that one ear clamp on the silicone pipe was in the wrong place, and it was going to bite into the tube next to it, the hose next to it. So we removed it and replaced it with this. So they want to look at the manufacture of these silicone hoses, but you see this one ear clamp here? It's this piece here that was rubbing into the pipe next to it for that connector down there.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Wally Ho's Garage. In this episode, we're replacing the radiator in the car. And the reason we're replacing it is because I cut off this flange and particles got into the radiator. I did flush the radiator, not 100% certain that I got it all out, and since I've removed most of the parts in the engine bay, might as well just insert a new radiator. They're only $300 or so, right? And the labor's already ready to go. Why not put a new one in? Prevents it from leaking. So we're going to do that. So that's what the new radiator is here. And we also got a whole bunch of parts from FCP Euro. Yeah, so we're replacing some of the O-rings, some of the clips. But the most important thing we want to replace is this return hose to the heater. We replaced the second hose of the input to the heater. We want to replace this one too because I realized the other one is not as soft and pliable as this is because it's like 14 years old. So we'll replace this to ensure that we don't have any kind of leaks. So all right, let's get to it. Right, so we're going to replace this hose right here, if you can see it. So it looks like this hose here, right? It goes in, there's a little clip up here, and it comes down and into the engine bay. So we'll just remove that and put this in. To get to the clip, we're going to have to use one of these long picks and to pry this little clip up here. And to prise it up, we'll be able to pull it off. So, got to work down there and get it. So now we have to pinch that off to pull that rubber hose off to put the new one in here. So we'll do that. We'll use this small pair of channel locks to do so. All right, so we've got the clip back in there, the hose in. We put a new clamp here, and we replaced the clamp here. So we got two of those new clamps, and so we clipped it in. If you can see it there, that's where the clips into the coolant system. So that's the end of the pipe. So that's the input or the exit of the heater. So there you go, brand new pipe. Now let's go put in the radiator. So we'll remove this thing here. Okay, and so we removed this hose from the radiator. Oops. That hose from the radiator. So we removed this hose from the radiator. It's a T25 Torx, and I pulled that out of the radiator. And it's got a little O-ring, and we will replace that O-ring. And over here, there's another hose. It's very similar. That's for the transmission cooler. We'll remove that, and then we should be able to take out the screws. We'll screw back here in the radiator, and then one back here, and then the radiator will lift out and pull out. And just so you know, though, this is the new one, the new radiator. It comes with this cap, right? You see that doesn't. There's a kind of a hole there. Well, that's a cap. You need to buy a thing that looks like this. And it's got a hole, and then this plug goes into it. So a lot of people think that plug that comes with the radiator is a plug. It's not. It's actually, you need this setup. You need this thing, and you need this little blue cap. So don't make that mistake. If you can see it. Yeah, that's just a plug. Versus this, which has a hole that goes in, and the radiator separates into this component and this upper component. This bottom chamber is the transmission cooler. So you'll see this little plug goes all the way through into that hole. Do you see that little kind of round thing in there?
And the plug here does not. You see that? Cool. Okay, so this is the cap. This is the new piece that used to be the one that you stick in the radiator, but you notice it doesn't go in. Okay, so is this cap the right cap? Did we get sent the wrong one? Is this a newer part that should just be using this? I don't know. I gotta mount the intercooler back on here afterwards. So this is the part from putting at the bottom of the radiator. It sections off the section that is the automatic transmission cooler and the rest of the radiator. Well, this head here doesn't fit into the bottom of the new radiator. The new radiator doesn't need this plug anymore. There used to be this long one for automatic and a shorter one for manual. Neither one is needed, just a plug now. So it's actually really good. These are actually 20 bucks. So yeah, it doesn't go in, like the head's too big. So anyway, don't order this. The radiators don't need it anymore.
Right, so now I'm gonna put in the new radiator. Here it is. So the little coolers go here and here. That's where the transmission cooler, and this is the main hose here and here. And we're gonna have to place that plug. We didn't buy one, I guess. So I'll try to put this in. Kind of angle it. To ensure it goes in. So kind of get around that big pipe. Okay, and now we put the radiator back in. We slid it in, hooked on the side, pushed it in. Kind of clips right in. We had to remove this pipe because it got in the way. There's not enough room. So now we're going to put back the two little pipes that we changed out the O-rings. At the bottom, put in the T25 Torx screws that hold them in place. So got two O-rings. These are, I think, part number 17111711987 FCP Euro. There's the two hoses that go to the bottom part of the radiator that feed into the transmission cooler. We're going to replace those because they're kind of flat. So we'll do that right now. We'll take them up and use it to pry them off, put them back in. It's hard to see, but it's down there. So if you're looking, it's the hose right here. Right there. And that hose right there. So we're going to replace it with this O-ring. Okay. So if you notice, it's all back in. There's the shroud, the radiator's back in. Those are the new silicone hoses, if you can see them. There's that black one there. Put a new clip in there because I broke it. Here's the new silicone hose. Connecting the oil cooler to the radiator. These are still taken apart because I'm going to walnut blast the intake manifolds. But yeah, that's what it takes to change out the hoses. Now if you go over here, you can see the two heater hoses there and there right into the firewall are brand new. As you can see, they're nice shiny rubber. Replace these clips so that we shouldn't have any heater problems. So this pipe, the very lower connector down there, is leaking. So I'm gonna go underneath the car. We get underneath here, right there. You can see there's drips coming out of it. As it's hooked to the thermostat, and there's like, well, it's dry right now, but it's been dripping. So I haven't really refilled the whole thing with water yet, but that's what's going on. I replaced almost all the hoses, as you've seen from all the purchases lately, and also all the, the knuckles there, and the obviously all the shocks and suspension and stabilizer bars and whatnot. So not really sure what's going on. So go check if it's the O-ring and buy yourself one of these pumps, connect it to the system, and then you can then leave it with pressure to see if the the system is airtight. This kit actually comes with a vacuum system that you tie to your compressor. It'll suck up all the air and then allow you to drop in the coolant without any kind of vapor lock. In other words, it pulls out all the air, so the whole system has no air in it, and then the liquid completely replaces it with no air bubbles, so you don't have a vapor lock situation. Anyway, the kit was really cheap. It's like $100 or something, but definitely get it so you know that it's holding pressure. This one's holding, I think, 5 psi right there. So we'll leave it for like another 2 hours and see where it goes. All right. You can hear it. You can hear it leaking because we have a pressure gauge attached. And this is the kit. That's the pump that you see outside. We're trying to replace this hose underneath, and so there's this really weird connector here which is buried down in there. It's covered in my engine parts. So go under the car. We have our, if you can see it, but do you see where the angle of the screw that's like pointing this way? And there's just no room down here. So we have this really nice Tecton universal joint. Take a look at it. Looks like this. It's a shallow socket with a universal joint on it. And we're able to get in there and at this weird angle unscrew it. Just really crazy. Otherwise you have to take off, I think, the sway bar and some other stuff. But yeah, so this is that plastic pipe. If you see it, goes there, comes through here into the oil transmission cooler. So trying to get rid of this, change this pipe out here. It's a lot of work. The 2 bolts are easily flexible down here, and then that one up here is really difficult to get to. And then we can pull it out. I'm gonna yank it out of there. And just gotta get from the reservoir tank on top here. As you can see, we disconnected it, that pipe down there. You can see it's disconnected. So we're gonna pull it through. And that's the new pipe. There's like one connector there, 2 connectors. Connector to the thermostat and then connector to the reservoir. So we'll try to snake that back in. So here's the pipe that comes from the coolant pipe from the engine into the top of the water pump. This is really hard to get to. We have to remove actually the water pump and the thermostat to get to it. But in order to replace this, you have to put this compression clamp onto here, really tucked up in a part of the vehicle that's hard to get to. You'll see it's in the wheel. I'll show you that in a sec. But you have to buy this tool. This is called the Mayhew company's tool. It does what it does is it has a little latch here and a cable, and the cable goes to this little clamp. And this clamp will compress these fittings, and therefore you can kind of compress these ring clamps in really tight places, and it will be really tight for the car. And so yeah, this tool is $75. I think Snap-on has one for $200. This one's actually quite good. I recommend you get the Mayhew one. But yeah, if you're trying to close these kind of clamps using like channel locks or whatnot, yeah, they do work, sometimes slip. But this thing here allows you to go into really tight spots and be able to pull on that handle and clamp this. And then it has a latch that holds it clamped, so you can move it around and then let it go. So anyway, yeah, Mayhew. All right, to give you an idea where that thing is, if you go in, look, here's the knuckle. Go in, here's the water pump. It's that pipe right there. I don't know if you see it. But it's right in the center of the screen. So that's the pipe we have to remove and replace. That piece is bad, it's leaking. And that goes to the top of the water pump, which means that's the thermostat and the water pump's behind you. We have to take that out, and it's really difficult to do so. So we're gonna try to remove it and get that pipe replaced. Yeah, and the secret to get that clamp off is these super miniature 1/8 inch
sockets that have a built-in universal joint. So this is super shallow, and so we're able to feed that through and at a very crazy angle undo the nuts for those band clamps. And then I use that 1/4-inch wrench to get in where this actually couldn't, get it loose enough to flip it around to a point where I could get this in. And that's how we got most of that stuff off there. You can see it, but we're trying to cut this thing off and pull that clamp that's right ahead of you, and pull that rubber joint off, which connects the water pumps in the back and the thermostats up front. So let's keep going. So it looks like the only way to cut that band clamp, because there's no other way to undo it, even with our special Mayhew tool with the cable. We're going to use this Dremel. I'm going to come in here like this and drill and cut that way. So we'll put a nick in it and try to break it. All right, as they come in, you can see I'm going to use this Dremel and try to saw through this piece of metal right here. Right there. I don't know if you can see that, but we cut the band. So we're gonna pry it out with some tools. Should be able to put the new one in. A lot of work. Working on trying to get that coolant pipe from the engine out. You can see it right there. We had to remove the bolts that hold the sway bar. You can see that it's disconnected there. And then we have to move a bunch of other bolts to get the sway bar out, to give us enough room to take out the water pump and the thermostat. It's actually a lot of work to change that pipe out. So we'll keep going on that and see what happens. This is underneath the car, and that's the pump. That's the thermostat. There are these bolts that we use, again, the Tecton super shallow universal bit, universal joint bit. So we got this through, and it's able to work at really crazy angles. Get the 2 bolts out of there, which disconnect the thermostat here from the fuel pump here. Sorry, the water pump here. Yeah, when we move this out, we should be able to disconnect the hose and get that fixed. So, yeah, it's actually quite hard. We had to remove this line right up here. This is the, I think this power steering pump, or the cooler actually for the transmission, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, I had to do the bolters to do this bracket so that, as you can see, this is the sway bar, which is sitting on this bracket. There's 2 of them. There's one over there too. So if we look at that bracket, they'll drop the sway bar and give us a little bit more room, because you can see it's right here, this thing. It's kind of blocking our access here. It's really tight, unfortunately, for the X-side model of the BMW. But we'll make do, see what we can do. All right. And also, yeah, I was trying to get this, you can see this little wire here out. That was really difficult, this one right here. Yeah, I had to pry it out with a screwdriver. It was really tight. And that's the control to the thermostat, you can see right there. I don't know if you can see it, but I had to feed our hand through here. We almost pushed it off. This is right there. There, we pushed it off. Yeah, so there's the coolant hose. We think there's a leak at the bottom because at the bottom here, it was kind of being compressed against the spring clamp, the screw clamp for the water pump and the thermostat, and I think it cut into because it was too tight. So we're going to flip that clamp around so that the screw part's below and not above, and cutting into this piece. So let's replace this. But wow, that was hard to get out. So to pinch the clamp, this clamp, in that really confined space, we have this cable clamp tool, which will be able to pinch here, and it'll crush
this enough to open it up and slide it onto that pipe that you see there. So it's the spring. So let's try. If you're wondering, you can get through the hoses from the side here. There's a panel here that we removed that protects the bellows here for the steering. So you can put a long extension in here, 6 mm, and you can actually turn the clamps on this side, the U joint, and on the other side as well. If you look down there, you can see it's right down there. So you can grab both from here, and so it's really tight, and probably the best place for you to turn those clamps is down here. All right, I think that's it. We replaced the coolant hose, which is up here, up there if you see it, and we tried to put all the other parts to the water pump back in. So I hope the water pump is still going to function. Otherwise, we'll take it all apart to put a new water pump in. Alrighty, all the hoses and whatnot, they're all being reinstalled. And so we use this attachment to the reservoir, which we put in air, and then we leave it and see if it holds air. If it does, then we know it's airtight. And then we replace it with the other part, which we plug into the same hole, which then sucks out all the air, creates a vacuum, so there's no air pockets inside your coolant system. And then because the vacuum will draw in the 50-50 mix of BMW coolant and distilled water. So we'll do that tomorrow, and then that's it. We are done. We'll put it all back together. Okay, it's been overnight. As you can see, the sun has risen. And we still have 5 bar there. So it looks like it is pressure tested and good. So we will run the vacuum and fill it full of coolant. But yeah, definitely get one of these pumps. Otherwise, you're not going to know if your coolant system is fixed. We were running a leak here. All right. Kit, you've got it hooked up. So that line there will go into the liquid. This is the Bernoulli effect tube. When we put air, compressed air through here, it'll run through this T, which can cause a vacuum. That's the Bernoulli effect, which will then pull air out of the system, which is attached there. This is normally closed, because when we open this, it'll suck the liquid up this tube, which will be in the bottles, which you'll see in a sec. So we have to open this tube. Okay, and so when we do that, you'll see this pipe over here. If you can see it, it'll collapse because it sucks out all the air. All right, so watch what happens. As you can see, it's dropping. So I have to let our air compressor catch up. Okay, and we go back here. You can see this, the tube here starting to collapse. Right, start to squeeze in. If you can see that, but do you see it's kind of compressed in there? So that's because we have a vacuum pulled. Okay, so we want to get into the yellow zone. So we're going to turn this back on. And the air rushing through again is the Bernoulli effect, which is causing a vacuum drop here, which is then sucking out the air in the system. We probably want to do this. Let it catch up. Into the yellow zone, we should be okay. Roughly around here is fine. Now we have a bottle of distilled water. So distilled means it's pure HOH. Grab our tube, drop it in, and it's got a vacuum, so there's no air in the system. So therefore we won't have to have vapor lock or anything like that. So definitely get a system like this to bleed the system before you put your liquid in. So then we open this valve here, and it'll suck this liquid in. As you can see, it's pulling down all the liquid, which allows you to fill your coolant system without any air in it. So what we're going to do now is we filled it. We'll put the cap back on. And then we're going to go and run the pump. And by doing that, we'll run fluid through the entire system, flush out all the yellow coolant that was in there, and then replace it with blue BMW coolant. So we'll do that next. All right, so we go back to IMPA. We're plugged into the AWD2 port in the car. We go to this screen. Let's go back. So we want to use the water pump, right? So we hit F8. And we have the cooling system bleed. We can choose that, or we can have just turn the pump on. So let's do cooling system bleed. Let's go F5. Okay, and this is essentially the cycle it's going to go through. So hit start down here. As you can see, the electric pump is now started up. And so we're going to run that while watching this. And then we're going to flush all of that distilled water we have in there and then put in actual coolant. So yeah, make sure you have your IMPA ready if you're going to do any work with this BMW. Right. But you see these bubbles? Those bubbles is because there's air in the system. So it's bleeding it out right now. So let it run. I want to make sure all the coolant is mixed so we can then dump and flush the coolant and get all the yellow coolant out and then put in our blue BMW coolant. But yeah, I'll let that run. As you can see, it's going to run through this program here. Make sure you have a battery charger hooked to the car because this actually is quite energy intensive because the pump is electric. All right. When it stops, I'll tell you, cooling system bleed has finished. All right. Hold the radiator plug. It's got a little ring on it. Then we're draining it. And then we're going to put the intercooler back in afterwards. So we're going to drain it from here, and then we're going to drain it from the other little hose down there. That should get out all the liquid. If you notice, it's running relatively clear. It does not look like there's any more of that yellow coolant in there, the sulfates and whatnot that are in there. It's all right. We'll put it back with blue BMW coolant. And this is the BMW coolant. It's blue. The colors mean compatibility with the system itself. This stuff, I think, has no sulfates in it. So yeah, so we'll mix that 50-50 and get it in the system. So we're going to cause the Bernoulli effect here. To bring down the So we're going to bring down the pressure, make it a vacuum, suck out all the air, and then force that liquid in. The pressure is not going down. It's because I left the bleeder screw here open. So tighten that up. Okay, now we'll try again. Let the air rush, and you'll see that it's just a build-up of vacuum. So we're just playing with these two valves until we get from around the yellow zone there. I think it's about as good as it's going to get. Let's draw on some of the liquid. So watch the tank. We've mixed that 50-50 with the blue BMW coolant, and we'll pour the rest of the coolant in plus more distilled water. All right, so we open this valve here. As you notice, because it's a vacuum, they'll start sucking that liquid into the tank without any air bubbles, or with most of the air bubbles removed. These are the final steps in bleeding the coolant system. It's going to run the motor on the water pump, different rates, different cycles, and to get all the bubbles out. I recommend that you keep the cap tight because it just shoots water everywhere. There's enough expansion volume in there for any bubbles to collect in the reservoir and then bubble off. So yeah, don't let that be loose, because you'll get completely covered in coolant and water. And obviously coolant is like a silicone oil, right? So you'll take some detergent to get out of your clothing. So anyway, it doesn't taste very good either. So don't do it. All right, that's it. I'll try to start the car after I put the intercooler back in, because the intercooler had to be out because you can't get to the drain plug for the radiator. It's blocked by the intercooler. The intercooler covers that. So put that back in, belly pan on, and we're good to go. So yeah, refresh on the coolant, refresh on the suspension, refresh on the radiator. We walnut blasted the valves. We did everything on this car. It's a full overhaul. It took several months. But yeah, it's a cool, fun do-it-yourself. Buy the right tools. And also have a copy of IMPA that you can control your car with.